I'm Rolene Marks. Welcome to Modiin and Beyond. Join me every Sunday between 3 and 4 on Radio Modiin as we take a look at what's happening in Modiin, Israel, and beyond. I'm Rolene Marks. As the jingle says, this is Modiin and Beyond. It's not Sunday, it is Tuesday. You know I do this every week, mostly to trick me. And this is where you come to take a look at what's happening in Modiin and Beyond on Radio Modiin. And I'm delighted to be joined in studio by Esti Schuster. She is the founder and owner of We Care Modiin. We're going to be talking about self-care, the importance of care right now, as we as a country, as a people, go through a very, very difficult time. After Esti, we're going to cross live to London. I will be speaking to the host of one of my favorite podcasts, The Jewish State. It's Johnny Gould. We're going to be talking about anti-Semitism in London, some of his guests, and even His Majesty King Charles. Now, this is Radio Modiin, where we have conversations with you, where we say Toshavim Medabrim, where the citizens speak. And remember, if you want your business to feature on Modiin and Beyond, please contact me either through Facebook or WhatsApp me at 0525829090. And of course, we take your advertising, we take your promotions, we take it all, but we offer you a good time. So sit back, relax, join us for the show, have your cup of coffee, and you're here for the interviews and the great music. So let's start off with a big welcome to Esti Schuster, the owner and founder of We Care Modiin. It's a fabulous facility. I spent some time on your website yesterday. Tell us, what made you start We Care?
This has been a dream of mine for years, ever since I can remember. So I can't even tell you when it started. But I always kind of had this dream of one center for everything you need for your body and soul. That was my dream for a very long time. And somehow it just happened, somehow.
Well, you do offer a variety of therapies, treatments for body and soul. So take us a bit through there, because I think all of us need a little bit of therapy, whether it's a massage or somebody to speak to. I think all of us are carrying a lot of trauma. I don't believe that we have even moved to the PTSD stage.
We're not there yet. Not at all. I know that a lot of people at this point are telling me, wait in a couple of months. Like right now you're treating like the onset. In a couple of months, it's going to be a different story completely. It's going to be, one after the next, people coming for PTSD. And, we also have physiotherapists, massage therapists, acupuncturists coming for physical treatments, to also heal their bodies, injuries, everything. That, the war has impacted us, body and soul. But we have everything. We have doctors, physiotherapists, mostly the majority are mental health professionals, psychologists. We have 2 psychiatrists, really a wide variety.
Israel is facing an unprecedented mental health challenge. I mean, there's no two ways about it. I think all of us in some way or the other are struggling with our mental health. And of course, if you don't take care of it, it manifests in the body.
Absolutely.
So what kind of trends are you noticing now?
What kind of trends am I noticing now? Well, there's been a few things. For example, there are people that were, let's say, hurt or participated in the last Mifsa, and now their PTSD is coming up because of this war. For example, we had a reporter come and do an interview for Katzinim in our rooms. Just sometimes people use our rooms for other things, interviews. It's any, kind of frontal meeting. And, when they came, they were learning about our place and the therapies and all the things. And he said, my son is PTSD from, my son has PTSD because he fought in the Mifsa before this war. And now it's all coming up for him.
Yeah.
And I've seen that a number of times coming up.
a lot of triggers.
A lot of triggers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
mean, I'm a journalist, and
Hmm.
it's covering this war, and it's very, very difficult for us because we have to sift through
Right.
all the information and all of those visuals that are beyond a horror movie. That Hamas came in, they captured all of their atrocities on camera. They made sure that they did this in order to terrify all of us, which they
Right.
succeeded in doing. And as a reporter, I have to sit and comb through the evidence in order to report. And it's difficult. I think people don't realize it. For the lawyers, the doctors, the reporters who cover the human aspect of this war, it's very, very difficult. But your facility, you guys are very, very involved right now in helping people navigate their issues right now. Tell us a bit about what you are doing.
Well, I'll tell you a little story.
I love a
So,
good story.
yes. So I actually found myself when on October 7th, not in Israel, I found myself in the United States. I was visiting my family with my children for the Chagim. And as everyone, I was shocked beyond, triggered by couldn't believe that that's what was going on back home. And I have a business, I have a week here. I'm back at home and just thinking, I'm here, I'm stuck, my flight's canceled. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? So I contacted Elad Shimonovitz. He's the Mishnah in Modiin. And I offered him, I saw they were taking Mefonim from the south. And I said, listen, and, there's a lot of people in our city that were impacted. I said, people that were at the attack, people that are Mefonim from the south, they need therapy. We have therapists. I made a list, a database of my therapists that are willing to offer treatments for free. They give the treatments for free. I give the room for free. And we treated a lot of people. A lot of people reached out to us, sent people over, and it was a big honor. Yeah.
It is a big honor because we're all
Yeah.
really, really battling to make sense of this.
Yeah.
It wasn't just an attack that happened to communities. It was an attack in the one place where we feel safe as Jews. And then on top of that, it was an
Right.
attack in our homes where we feel safe as families and individuals. So very, very difficult to navigate. So let's talk about somebody wants a particular type of therapy, because I see that you offer a variety from speech therapy to massages to, as you said, to therapists. So tell us about how do we book and what's on offer? Do you need to be assessed?
So all the therapists that work by me, they use my facility, but they're all private therapists.
Okay.
They all work according to their own terms. But we do refer a lot of people to therapists. We do get a lot of calls when you're looking for this and this therapist. And we have a group, like a format of where I can reach out to over 100 therapists that are on there that are worked by me and see who is appropriate and available for the job. And I'm able to refer them onwards. And we just recently created a new site that isn't live yet, that also is a database for the public to see of all the therapists and the ability to contact them. So that's how it works.
That's very, very helpful.
Yes.
Can you give us the address of your website so that if people want to make a connection, they know where to go?
It's portal.site.wecaremodine.com.
So that's portal.site.wekemodin.com.
Yes.
You might want to give that again.
I could also send a link. Yeah, you can put it there afterwards. Yeah.
That would be great. Now, you spend your days managing people, managing therapy. What about your self-care? What are your self-care tips?
What are my self-care tips? Well, what you were talking about seeing videos and images.
Yeah.
it ourselves, but we take some of that experience in ourselves. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's a very small country, so we know, all of us
Yeah.
know somebody who was either horrifically attacked or has been kidnapped, and we are all carrying that anxiety. And of course, our soldiers, our brave men and women fighting on the front line. Do you treat soldiers?
We've had many, beyond so many. You know how many times I've gotten messages from a therapist, is We Care going to be open on the weekend? Because I have a therapist and he's going back to base on Sunday. Is it okay if I bring him? Because I normally don't have people, working on Shabbat. He's like, but this, soldier needs a treatment before he goes back. So so yeah, absolutely. Many.
So you're running through the weekend as well?
Not normally. Normally my place is closed on Shabbat, but if there's a soldier that needs a tipul on Shabbat, he's in.
We do anything for our soldiers
Absolutely.
in this country. They are fighting for every single one of us.
Yes.
So, Esty, if somebody is a therapist and they want to give time or be part of the network, how do they contact you?
They could contact our office, F8699898 and they speak to me, they speak to Shani, who works with me, and that's it. It's a few minutes of giving some information, and that's it.
And can you give that number again in Hebrew and in English so that our listeners...
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm also thinking of our Olim who've made Aliyah come to Israel during this time and maybe are also feeling very, very overwhelmed with the situation and don't know where to go.
Absolutely. It's 086998880 or F869989880.
And that website address again, please?
Portal.site.wecaremodin.com.
That's Esty Schuster. Esty is the owner and founder of We Care Modiin. On the other side of this music break, we are going to be crossing to London and speaking to Johnny Gould of the Jewish State.
Get a fast car. I want a ticket to anywhere. Maybe we make a deal. Maybe together we can get somewhere. Any place is better. Starting from zero, got nothing to lose. Maybe we'll make something. Me, myself, I got nothing to prove. You get a fast car. I got a plan to get us out of here. Been working at the convenience store. Managed to save just a little bit of money. Won't have to drive too far. Just cross the border and into the city. You and I can both get jobs. Finally see what it means to be living. See, my old man's got a problem. Yeah, but the bottle, that's the way it is. He says his body's too old for working. His body's too young to look like his. My mama went off and left him. She wanted more from life than he could give. I said, somebody's got to take care of him. So I quit school, and that's what I did. You got a fast car. Is it fast enough so we can fly away? We gotta make a decision. Leave tonight or live and die this way. So I remember when we were driving in your car. Speed so fast I felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us, and your arm felt nice wrapped around my shoulder. And I had a feeling that I belonged. I had a feeling I could be someone, be someone, be someone. You got a fast car. We go cruise and entertain ourselves. Still ain't got a job. Now work in the market as a checkout girl. I know things will get better. You'll find work and I'll get promoted. We'll move out of the shelter, buy a bigger house and live in the suburbs. So I remember when we were driving in your car. Speed so fast, I felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us. Your arm felt nice wrapped around my shoulder. And I had a feeling that I belonged. I had a feeling I could be someone, be someone, be someone. You got a fast car. I got a job that pays all our bills. The shells drinking late at the bar. Some more your friends than you do your kids. I'd always hope for better. Thought maybe together you and me find it. Got no plans, I ain't going nowhere. Take your fast car and keep on driving. You got a fast car.
Well, someone is enjoying a career resurgence with this song. Tracy Chapman, Fast Car. If you saw her at the Grammys, duetting on a countrified version, it was awesome. Even more awesome at the Grammys was the salute and the memorial to the victims of the Nova Festival. May their memories forever be blessed. Now, I'd love me a good podcast, and one of my favorite podcasts is The Jewish State, and you can find it wherever you get your podcasts. And the phenomenal host of The Jewish State, Johnny Gould, joins me all the way from London. I'm so happy we finally get you back on the show again.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. It's a rare privilege, which makes it all the better to be here, Rolene. How are you doing?
You know, as we say in Israel, day by day, and we watch what is happening around the world. We are watching what is happening in the United Kingdom with a lot of concern. We see these massive marches every weekend. We see the surge of anti-Semitic rhetoric and coming from people like who might not be aware that some of the stuff that they are sharing can be construed as anti-Semitic. Somebody like Gary Lineker, who I think is correct me if I'm wrong, he's probably the biggest star at the BBC. Am I correct?
He is, and he has the biggest following of a pro-Palestinian supporter in this country, as well as being our biggest celebrity. In fact, my last episode was with a very brave journalist and a friend called Nicole Lampert, who is a distinguished journalist who attended a Broadcasting Press Guild event, which was designed to showcase Lineker's burgeoning podcast business. And instead she asked, why are you flouting the BBC's social guidelines with retweeting a BDS demand? And Lineker said, it wasn't a demand. It was news. And Nicole wouldn't let it lie because Nicole is Nicole. And she said it was a demand. And Lineker said it was news. And suddenly the place hushed down because she wouldn't let it lie. And I got Nicole's story. It's the latest episode of my podcast series on Johnny Gould's Jewish State. If anyone wants to hear it, it's out there as well. And Nicole is so matter of fact. And if I could ever have imagined someone eventually confronting Lineker like that, it would be Nicole, because she's got this fearless courage, although she did admit to shaking afterwards, confronting this very big star, because he actually came to look for her after the event and said, is everything all right? And of course, it wasn't. And you'll probably have heard that a couple of days ago, a very sorry story, given the history of the place, the Soho Theatre.
I was going to ask you about that, because we are seeing that there is no fear to intimidate anymore. especially in cities like London. And I believe that the silent majority stand with us, stand with Israel. But we are seeing this horrific intimidation, which we've known for years happens with the pro-Palestinian camp. And now it's out there for everybody to see. So tell us what happened at this comedy show.
Well, there's an alleged comedian, and I say alleged because I think anyone who throws Jews, stroke Zionists, out of a theatre because they don't agree with his pro-Palestinian stance is suddenly not very funny at all. His name's Paul Curry. Rather amusingly, his event was called Shtum. I wonder what he thinks that language comes from. Anyway, he basically ordered an Israeli, get out of my, performance. And the punters started chanting Free Palestine, which I think is 21st century for Heil Hitler, the way it was said, the way it was pronounced, the way it was delivered. And he left with his friends. The tragedy of this, apart from it being called Shtum, is that it was the site until about 25 years ago of the Grand West End Synagogue. So they built it on top of that. And that's where we've gone from in the 90s to now. There are these horrendous events going on every, weekend, which involve, thousands of people. They're all around the country. Thank goodness they're not hugely attended anymore, but they are ramping it up again in Rafah because, of course, Israel is the only country that's not allowed to win a war. And David Cameron's acting like a schmuck, honestly, with his pronouncements about trying to create a state of Palestine, not just in the UK, but across the UN. He literally does not understand what's unfolding in front of him. And so, we look at Israelis with admiration for your courage and your fortitude and for your heroism. And we have a different texture of anti-Semitism here, which is not nice. And when I cross the road to go to synagogue with my kids, I'm looking out for two things. I'm looking out for the traffic and I'm looking out for ramming. Honestly, I'm not joking, Rolene. It's like a mishegas, a madness, which has suddenly enveloped our previously tolerant society.
Johnny, do you think that this is the opinion of the majority of Brits, or do the silent majority stand with us but look at what's happening and are too scared to say something?
I think it's the silent majority. But the silent majority has a responsibility to either use their democratic right at an election this year to vote against parties who have an anti-Semitism problem, or to speak out. Because if they don't speak out, we know from our Jewish history that things like Nazi Germany, Nazi Poland, Nazi Vienna happen. And the country is divided, and I don't say divided in opinion, it's divided in its demographics. So we have cities and towns which have an increasing immigrant population, but we have slightly more urban and rural areas which are still predominantly English, that still have the consensus of the country of the children of Winston Churchill. But it's their duty to speak out about it. I always remember the words of Ian Austin, who's now in the House of Lords, when he was the MP for Dudley. He said about the people of Dudley, which is literally in the middle of England, he said, "My people, they may not know the ins and outs of Jewish history, but they know something's wrong." And he was referring to Jeremy Corbyn. And you just wonder that even though Sir Keir Starmer has tackled or is attempting to tackle the anti-Semitism problem in the Labour Party, it never really went away.
There is an election possibly coming up this year. I see that polls have support for the Tories really shrinking, but support for Reform UK seems to be growing rapidly. Who is Reform UK, and could they cause a major upset in the upcoming elections?
I'll answer the second question first, which is no, they've got no chance because we have a first past the post system. So even though they are polling 10, 11 and 12% of the current popular vote, you know as well as I do, that advances them in the former European elections where they'll get MAPs in a system which is different to ours. But of course, we don't have European elections anymore. But it's essentially a binary system. And, you know, in most constituencies, that means Tory or Labour. But in some traditional areas like Scotland and the south coast of England, there are Lib Dem strongholds, which have always been there for the last 100 years or so. So even though the Lib Dems are melting away, they will get more seats than Reform UK, even though Reform have a bigger popular vote. Who are they? Well, it's Nigel Farage. Mm-hmm. It's a private business, believe it or not. It's not a political party with mass membership. And Farage has the majority of the shares. Richard Tice, who is the leader, has a fair amount of shares as well. And I know Richard really quite well. I also know the deputy, David Bull, who's a colleague of mine at Talk TV. And I think the best way to describe them is the Tory party of the 1980s and 90s. They are right of the current Tory party. I think a lot of parties are right of the Tory party these days. But as I've said to my audience on Talk TV, that if you're planning to vote for Reform as a protest against the Tories, be careful what you wish for, because what you might be hastening in is a Labour government that you definitely don't want. So there is a binary choice to make. And obviously ballots are secret. So when people go behind the ballot box, and, you know, it's a very sobering moment to vote. You feel the hand of history on your shoulders, to quote Tony Blair. And you think, oh, I'm definitely voting Reform. I'm definitely voting Reform. And then you get behind the curtain to your secret ballot and you look down at the ballot and think, God, will I really do that? And then you put down the vote against someone you hadn't thought about 5 minutes ago. So I think reports of the Tory demise is overstated. Yes, they might lose. Yes, they're not doing well. Yes, the polls are overwhelmingly in favour of Keir Starmer. But they've had a problem, as you well know, over the last 48 hours, where Azhar Ali, who's the by-election candidate for Labour, accused Israel of deliberately allowing the October the 7th massacre so that they could invade Gaza. What a disgusting lie that
absolutely
is.
Preposterous. And I have to say,
disgusting.
A big thank you to channels like Talk TV and outlets like The Sun and the Daily Mail. I find it very interesting that the tabloid print media is doing the job of what used to be the broadsheets, the papers of record. But in exposing this, and also I just want to give a mention to Talk TV for really showing very even-handedly Israel's side of the conflict, speaking to families of hostages, speaking to people who really know what it's like to fight urban warfare, because we have many armchair generals out there who haven't served coffee, let alone served in a war. And we are fighting a very, very deadly enemy in a very, very different environment and scenario that other armies have had to endure. So as a citizen of this country, unlike the BBC, which is the polar opposite, which still can't bring themselves to say the word Hamas is a terrorist organization, a big thank you to you and your colleagues at Talk TV. Let's go a bit north of the border. Humza Yousaf, the First Minister of Scotland, making his feelings well known very, very outspoken about a ceasefire. What are his chances of staying in power? It doesn't look like the SNP, the Scottish National Party, is gaining respect and strength there.
Look, they're not as popular as they were. And if you remember the 2017 election, they got almost every seat in Westminster. By 2019, that had been reduced by about 30%. I'm not sure his Palestinianism is popular among Scots. It might be in places like Glasgow, but further afield, I think that Labour are increasing. And now that there is a hope in terms of the Labour Party getting elected, that you might start seeing people migrating away. But they do have a stronghold. They're very, very strong in Scotland. And his wife has family in Gaza. And all of this contributes to his comments about a ceasefire. As Douglas Murray put it so pithily, he says Israel seems to be the only country in the world not allowed to win a war. And that is the narrative that's going on at the moment.
I mean, Douglas Murray, I think, is almost single-handedly holding up the morale of the people of Israel and Jewish people around the world. And Douglas, if you're listening, I don't think that the lexicon of the English language has enough words of gratitude to express the gratitude that we have for you. And you do it so elegantly, so articulately, and just with so much appreciation from all of us. Johnny, you might have heard, I am a monarchist, I am a royalist, I'm a firm believer in the form of government, a constitutional monarchy. I think those are very, very successful forms of government. And I'm very, very sad to have heard about His Majesty King Charles's recent cancer diagnosis, President Herzog expressing the well wishes of Israelis in a very, very lovely message, saying how much he benefits from the wisdom of and advice from His Majesty the King. What are the feelings like in the United Kingdom? And some pundits are saying, could there be an abdication in favor of the heir to the throne, the Prince of Wales, Prince William? What is the scenario you see happening there?
Well, we can go back in history and know that when George VI had a very serious cancer towards the end of his life, he had a lung amputated, removed in Buckingham Palace by a surgeon, and councillors were brought in to run, the job of the head of state, to sign off the documents, to sign off the statutes. That's not happening here. King Charles has committed himself to continually work on all the constitutional issues. He may not be able to have the weekly meetings with Rishi Sunak, although he's still having them now. The truth is also that there's a few members of the royal family on the injury list. Princess Catherine also has had a recent problem, yes, unidentified. And
we do love Princess Catherine in Israel. We do love our Princess of Wales.
Oh, she's gorgeous, isn't she?
Absolutely.
And it just goes back to this idea that you can be a commoner in Britain. As long as you marry into the Norman line, you got a chance at the top table. Which always makes me titter, because the last few prime ministers have also done that. They are half immigrant and half royalty. And I'm talking about David Cameron and Boris Johnson.
Yes.
Between them are, 40th or 50th in line to the throne. But as we know, both of them have Jewish ancestry. But on the other side, they married well, Rolene.
I think Prince William married well as well.
Listen, we all marry well, don't we? We just make our choices, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But the King Charles, look, it's new, this idea of saying, I've got cancer. I mean, you'd never hear that from the Queen. They were private. But I must say, cancer is just the most pervasive and terrible illness. we all know someone at first or second hand who suffered this. The incurable 1 in 2 of us get it. And so to know that the king is the same as us, and that it may hasten a bit of donations, a bit of political pressure on the NHS, upon other organizations, upon people actually coming out and saying, well, this really helps me, that we're not alone. It's a very isolating disease, isn't it?
Yes.
So kol hakavod to the king, refuah shalema. He's a friend of the Jewish community, and we wish him well.
And some people saying, could this be the time for the wayward ex-royal Prince Harry to come back and fulfill his obligations as a prince of the realm? Could we see Harry coming back and bringing his wife, Meghan?
It's such a massive opportunity for him. And despite the pelters he gets in the media, I think he's still popular in certain parts of the country. So you could take him to London or Birmingham, Manchester. He's got the common touch. He's got that Princess Diana thing. He's still part of the Invictus Games, which is, of course, the disabled injured soldiers Olympics. And he's likable, you know, and he's fallen out with them. It's a pretty big broigus. He's not bothered with William. It's a tragedy, actually, for the brothers that they've fallen out so badly. But actually, the truth is, they need a bit of heavy lifting from him. Don't know about Meghan. She's a bit of a liability, isn't she? Not
too popular in the UK. Not too popular here either.
No. He could come back, and he loves his dad. I mean, he rushed back from California because he wasn't sure how serious the illness was. And he was there on the tarmac at, near Windsor, and he went to see his dad. And that says something about his relationship with his dad. And you just never know that. I mean, he can easily come back on his own. Meghan could be saying, oh no, she's looking after the kids and all that malarkey. You could come and make one appearance somewhere, get cheered, and get resurrected into the royal family. I know that's what the Queen fancied for him. And I think he should take this opportunity. It just depends whether he wants to score in an open goal. This is a real opportunity for Harry to pulp that silly spare book, stop talking nonsense, and remember who he is. And who he is a royal.
If you don't know who you are, you don't know where you are going. Just saying, Harry, just saying. But we wish His Majesty King Charles refuah shlema. We also wish Her Royal Highness Princess Catherine, the Princess of Wales, refuah shlema. She is massively popular, as is the Prince of Wales, William, here in Israel. We were very, very touched to see the messages from the King and from the Prince and Princess of Wales after the horrific attacks. The fact that Catherine stepped out dressed in blue and white was not lost on us. The fact that they met with the chief rabbi, Mervis, was not lost on us. These send massive messages, not just to your community, but to us here in Israel as well. It is so enormously appreciated. Johnny Gould, where do we find you on Talk TV and on the Jewish State?
Well, thank you for that. Johnny Gould's Jewish State, as you mentioned at the beginning of our discussion, is available wherever you get your podcast. Just type in Johnny Gould's Jewish State. Johnny is Jonny, like all Jewish boys. We don't have the H in our name. And you'll find it on YouTube as well, under youtube.com/Johnny Gould as well. And on Talk TV, I'm a regular presenter. They put me on TV with my mush. They think it's acceptable for television. Who can argue with them? And I'm able, thank God, as you mentioned, to be able to talk to the families of hostages. And there's something else, actually, Rolene, I want to say. We always forget that equal to the victims of the hostages and their families are IDF soldiers as
Absolutely.
well. We don't think of soldiers in the same way as we do hostages, and we should, because these are reservists and they are teenage boys and girls, and they've died in their hundreds for the state of Israel. And so I interviewed a man originally from Manchester, whose boy Benjamin Meyer Early was killed in action, just 21 years old. And we should always remember the incredible bodily sacrifices of our IDF soldiers, because they're not the same as British Army soldiers who sign up to fight. IDF soldiers don't really want to sign up to fight, but they realize that if they don't, then no one will. So the IDF is the state of Israel, and I accord the same kavod and respect to the IDF soldiers as I do to the hostages.
We could not be more proud of them. I think you will join me in wishing every single one of our soldiers so bravely fighting on our behalf, and actually on the vanguard of Western civilization. Yeah. They are the front line, and we wish them every strength in battle. Go in strength, young warriors, and return in victory. I think you will join me also in saying, bring them home now. Bring all our hostages home now. What a miracle it was to wake up yesterday morning to that news that they had rescued 2 soldiers. And for all those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, now nearly 230 soldiers, nearly 600 in total since the 7th of October. You were the best of us. You will always be the best of us. May your memories be eternally blessed. Johnny Gould, Amen. Host Amen. Of Jewish State podcast, one of my favorite podcasts. Who's your next guest that you've got coming up?
Well, Nicole Lampert was the one I hurried out, but I've actually got Manuel Valls, the former Prime Minister of France, in French, because I have found amongst my French Kahila here in London that they like the podcast, but they don't always listen. So I'm doing a French podcast. I've also got the mighty Avi Issacharoff, the co-creator of the amazing Fauda, and they have been touched by the tragedy of this Gaza Absolutely. War as well. And I think I want to ask him from a creative point of view, now that Fauda is an absolute daily reality, and when you think about the hostages that were freed by the IDF, which is just a typical Fauda exercise, do people really want to see a drama based upon the reality of today? You know, it's a bit close. So Avi Issacharoff coming soon as well. Very thrilled about that. And just pegging back one episode as well, Rolene, I was in Auschwitz with Elon Musk a couple of weeks ago on the European Jewish Association event. And I managed to get President Reuven Rivlin to essentially break the law in Poland on Polish Holocaust denial, where he refused to accept the Polish remembrance view that it wasn't them. And so he broke the law, we left the country, and I published it, and it's available online now.
Well, Jewish State, wherever you get your podcast, you don't want to miss it. Some of the most incredible guests as interviewed by the fantastic Johnny Gould. I'm so glad that we were able to talk today. I look forward to seeing more of you on Talk TV. It's definitely a channel growing in popularity here in Israel. Thank you to you. Thank you to your colleagues. Thank you for being my guest this morning. A big thank you to Johnny Gould, host of Jewish State, the podcast. A big thank you to SD Schuster, the owner and founder of We Care Modiin. A massive thank you to Pe'er Atia, my engineer behind the scene, and to you, my listeners and viewers. I'm Rolene Marks. This has been Modiin and Beyond. Remember, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. I will see you again next week.
התחיל השיר היפה שאת כל כך אוהבת, איך הולך הפזמון שהיינו עומדים בכל ערב, ואת לא שוכחת להודות על הרגעים, על כל מה שיחד, שיש חושך בלב את מוארת, את שמש זורחת, קרן אור. ישן, מתחיל לזוז לי האגן, אז בואי לכאן, סיבוב קטן, אולי נרקוד כמו ביוון, ולא כמו ביוון. אז בואי לכאן, סיבוב קטן, אולי נרקוד כמו ביוון, ולא כמו ביוון. ואיך החום פתאום עולה, הלב מתחיל להתמלא, מה הסיבוב הזה עושה לה, היא מתוקה כמו סוכריה, ואיך החום פתאום עולה, הלב מתחיל להתמלא, מה הסיבוב הזה עושה לה, היא מתוקה כמו סוכריה, כמו קרמלה. רוקד איתך כמו משוגע, אני לא יכול להירגע, אז בואי לכאן, סיבוב קטן, אולי נרקוד כמו ביוון, ולא כמו ביוון. ואיך החום פתאום עולה, הלב מתחיל להתמלא, מה הסיבוב הזה עושה לה, היא מתוקה כמו סוכריה, כמו קרמלה. ואיך החום פתאום עולה, הלב מתחיל להתמלא, מה הסיבוב הזה עושה לה, היא מתוקה כמו סוכריה, כמו קרמלה. מה הסיבוב הזה עושה לה, מה זה עושה לה, מתוקה כמו סוכריה, כמו קרמלה.